We begin the Gemara today towards the bottom of Pehei Amid Beis, 5 lines up from the bottom of the Amid, where it says Shmuel Yarchina. Okay, so the Gemara Shmuel Yarchina. Shmuel, which is the one that knew all the ways of how the moon goes, and the side Ha'ibur, Rashi says, this is actually Shmuel that's brought in Shas all the time. But here the Gemara gives him this title of Shmuel Yarchina. Asyeh the Rebbe Hava. He was the doctor of Rebbe. Cholash Rebbe Beine. Rebbe had an illness in his eyes. Amalei. So Shmuel says to Rebbe, Imli loch sama. Let me put the medication into your eyes. Amalei. Rebbe says to him, Lo yachilna. I can't handle that. So he says to him, Eshtelach mishta. Let me apply it on top of your eyes. Amalei lo yachilna. He says to him also, no, I can't handle that either. So what did he do? Have a moisevle begufse the samani. So he took the medication that he had and he put it inside a tube. And he put it tusi beisadya, and he put it under his pillow, and the itzi, and Rebbe's eyes got healed. The power of this medication was so strong that it penetrated through the pillow, through his skull, through his brain, and it went to his eyes and it healed him. Rebbe was working very hard, and he was trying to give him smicha, that he should be able to paskin, halachas, dinei mamanis, and other things, and you have to have the chachamim properly together to be able to give smicha. And it didn't work out. The time wasn't possible. You didn't have the chachamim to give him smicha. Amalei, so Shmuel says to Rebbe, Lo yitztar mar, don't work so hard to give me smicha, because lididi chazi li sifre the Adam Erishin. I saw the sefer, the book of Adam Erishin. Now, either this means literally, some actually say that this is literally, it was a sefer of Adam Erishin, is a lashon of the pasuk zeh sefer told this Adam, or others say it doesn't literally mean a sefer. It means that David showed Adam Erishin all the different great people that are going to be in the future until Mashiach comes, or really all the neshamas until Mashiach comes. And he says, I saw in what it says in the sefer of Adam Erishin Ksivbei, and there it says Shmuel Yarchina, Shmuel, the one that knows all the ways of the moon. Chacham Yiskari, he's going to be called wise, but Rebbe lo Yiskari. He's never going to get the term Rebbe, which you get when you have smicha. So he says, I know that I'm not going to have smicha. And then it also says there that Va'asad Rebbe al Yadei Tehei, and the healing of Rebbe will be through him. So he was the doctor of Rebbe. And there in the sefer of Adam Rishon, it says further, Rebbe v'Rab Nosson Seif Mishnah. Rebbe and Rab Nosson, they are the end of the time of the Tanoim, of the Mishnah. As Rashi explains there, that until Rebbe, there was all the different halachas and mishnayos that was taught, but it wasn't organized. And Rebbe put together the Shisha Sidrei Mishnah, that it should all be organized. And after that, it's closed. And then Rav Ashi v'Ravina Seifira, and Rav Ashi and Ravina at the end of the time of the Amirayim, where there were all the halachas that were taught after the mishnayos, besides the fact that the Amirayim analyzed and explained all the pshatim of the Mishnah, the contradictions and everything, and besides that there was many different halachas that were passed in the Bismedish at that time, which the Gemara always brings, and it was just it was taught and between the Talmidim, but then Ravina Rav Ashi came and organized it and wrote it down in the Gemara. Simanach, a hint or a simon for this in the pasuk regarding Ravina and Rav Ashi, Adove Keil, Adove El Mikdashi Keil, until I come to the Mikdash of the Eibishter, and Mikdash, the word Mikdash, the Shin, hints to Rav Ashi, and Avina La'achrisam, I'll remember them, and La'achrisam, this is the end. Avina is a remes to Ravina, so Ravina and Rav Ashi, they were the end of the time of the Hira of the Gemara. After the Gemara, we don't have the power anymore to create takonis the way that Tanaim and Amirayim did. Omar Rav Kahane said, Ishtoili Rav Chome bar berate de Chase, Rav Chome, which is the grandson of Chase or Chome, he told me the following story, that Rabbi Banachmeni, Agav Shmode Noch Nafshei, Rabbi Banachmeni, because of the persecution of the government, this is what caused him to pass away. And here the Gemara is going to tell us the whole story of what happened to Rabbi Banachmeni. So what happened? So there were people that came and informed on him by the king. Achle bekortze is this expression when people come and speak to the king. They make signals with their eyes, and they eat together, and they say bad things about other people. And they said about Rabbi Bar Nachmani, Amru, they said, Ikachad Gavre biyudoi, there's a person amongst the Yidden, the Kamavatel Teresa Alpha Gavre Yisrael, that he nullifies, or he takes away the ability from 12,000 men from the Yidden, Yarche Bekaite v'Yarche Besasve, a month in the summer and a month in the winter, Mikarge de Malke, from being able to collect the head tax of the king. because there was a month in the summer, which was the month of Nisan, and a month in the winter, which was Tishrei, when they all gathered to come learn Torah by him. And therefore, when the king, the agent of the king, came to collect the taxes from the people, these people, you couldn't find these people. They weren't available. They weren't home. So he's preventing the king from collecting taxes of all these people. So Shadru Pristike the Malke Basrei, they sent an agent from the king after him to go and catch him, to catch Rabbi Bar Nachmani that's causing this. They couldn't find him. Arak, he ran away. Va'azal, he went Pumbedisa la'Akra, from the Pumbedisa where he was the Rosh Hashiva, to the city of Akra, and then Akra la'Agma, from Akra he went to Agma, and then Agma l'Schin, U'mischin l'Tzrifu, Mitzrifu la'Eina Demayim, and then U'meina Demayim, he finally came back L'Pumbedisa, to this place where he was living. He came to Pumbedisa, but there in Pumbedisa he didn't go back home. But Pumbedisa, there when he was in Pumbedisa, Ashkeche, that's where the agent of the government found him. And the Gemara says the story how he found him. Ikla peristike de malche lahu ushpize de Rabbe. So this agent of the king that was after him encountered him in this inn where Rabbe was staying. How did it happen? Rabbe was there, but Rabbe was hiding. So this agent that was there, krivu take kame, they brought a table of food in front of him. Vashkeu trei kosi. They gave him to drink two cups together. Vidalyua letake mikame. After he drank the 2 cups, they took away the table from in front of him. What happened as a result? Hadar partzufe la'achayre. His head was turned around backwards. He was affected by the fact that he ate these 2 or drank these 2 cups together, because this is what the Gemara says in Psachim about the concept of zugais. When you do things in doubles, then there's the shadim have the ability to harm a person. And that's what happened. They harmed him over here. So Amrulay, so the people, the hosts over there of this inn were very afraid over here that they caused this damage to the agent of the government. So they asked Rabbah. They knew how great he was, so they came and asked Rabbi Bar Nachmani, my navedle, what should we do for him? How can we heal him? Gavre de Malkuhu, he's the agent of the king. Amalohus, they gave him the advice, and he said, Kirivu takele kame, bring him again another table. Vashkriyu chat kasa. Now this time, give him only 1 cup to drink. V'dalyole takem kame, and then immediately take the table away from him. So he's going to drink only 1, and then v'litzei, and he'll be healed. Of the lehachi, they did this for the agents of the king, and vitzi, and he was actually healed. So now we saw that they were able to heal him. He knew there must be some supernatural power here of someone that gave him this advice to do this. So Amar, the agent said, Meida Yedina, I know the Gavre, the Kabina, Hachahu, the person that I'm looking for, Rabbi Bar Nachmani, this great individual, he's here, he must have given you this advice. He looked at, he went and searched for him over there in the inn, and Vashkeche. And he found him. Now this agent said, I'm going to leave from here. If they're going to threaten to kill this person, referring to himself, I'm not going to reveal where your location is. But if they're going to torture me, then I'm going to reveal where you are. They brought Rabbi Bar Nachmani in front of him. The lashon of the Gemara is a little hard to understand because it seems like he was already having a conversation with him. There are some other gears here in the Gemara, but either way, the Gemara says they brought Rabbi Bar Nachmani in front of the agent of the king. What did he do to him? He put him into a room, and he locked the door. He locked him into a room. So Rabbi Bar Nachmani is locked in this room. He davened to the Eibishter, begged for mercy, and Parek Ashisa, a wall of the room fell down. Arak, he ran away, and he went and sat by a swamp. Havayasiv Agirde the Dekula, he was sitting on a stump of a palm tree, V'Kagaris, and he was learning. And then as he's sitting there and learning, he heard that Kamiflagi b'Mesifta de Rekia, he heard that there's a argument going on in the yeshiva in Shemaim, in the heavenly yeshiva. What was the argument? In Beheres called Melisei Lavan, a person that has a nega. So if the white color of the nega appears on the skin before the white hairs appear, in order for a nega to be tamei, it has to also have white hairs, not just the white color, but also white hairs. Now, if the color white on the skin comes before the white hair, then tamei, then it's tamei. But if the white hairs appear before the white color on the skin, tahir, then it's tahir. That's the halacha that's learned from the pasuk. Then their argument was regarding the following case: suffix. What if it's a case where it's a suffix of what happened first? Did the white color come first, or did the white hair come first? So what's the halacha here? That was what they were arguing about. So here there's a big discussion in Rishonim about this. This is also brought in the Gemara in Ksubis, and there's a discussion in Rishonim. What's the shaila? If you have a suffix, if this person is tahir or tamei, so then the halacha should be you should follow the chazaka. Every person has a chazaka that he's tahir, so we should say that he's tahir. So Taisus over there says it must be that the shaila was in a case where the person doesn't have any chazaka. He was already tummy from before, from another nega. And now there's a new nega that appeared on him, so he doesn't have any cheskas tara. So the question is, in this case of a suffix, what's going to be his halacha? HaKadosh Baruch Hu Eimer Tahir. The Eibusha himself said that this person is going to be pure. The Kulum, Mesifta, the Rekiya Amri, and the whole heavenly yeshiva said, Tomei, that this person will be Tomei. That was the argument. Amri, and they said, Man Noicha, who's present here that could resolve this machlekes? So they said, Noichach Rabbi Bar Nachmani. Who we have present is Rabbi Bar Nachmani. Because he's the only one that could resolve this. Because the Yom Rabbi Bar Nachmani said, Ani Yochid bin Negoyim, I'm the single one. I'm the only one that knows all the halachas of Negoyim perfectly, and Ani Yochid Ba'alis. I'm the only one that knows the halachas of Alis as well, the halachas of Tumah and a tent and so on. So he's the only one that could resolve this. Shadr Shlicha Basrei, they sent a shliach, they sent the Malach HaMavos after him to bring him up to Shemayim. Bava Metzia Malach HaMavos l'mikrev lei, the Malach HaMavos couldn't get close to him. Because he's sitting there and he's learning and he didn't stop learning, the Malach HaMavos can't touch him. So Adahachi Noshev Zike Va'avish Beinikani. So a wind came and blew amongst the reeds. So Rabbi Bar Nachmani thought to himself, Gunde the Parshihu, that this is the group of the soldiers that are coming after him. So Amari says to himself, Teinech nafshe dahu gavra, let this person, referring to himself, pass away, and he should not be given over into the hands of the government. And then what happened was, then the Malach HaMavos was able to take his life, and when he passed away, Omar Tohir Tohir, he said twice, Tohir, that this case of the suffix regarding the nega, the halach is, it's Tohir. Yatzis Baskov Ha'omra, a heavenly voice came out and said and announced, Ashrecha Rabba Bar Nachmani, that fortunate are you, Rabbi Bar Nachmani, shegufach tar, your body is pure, v'yatzasa nishmascha b'tar, and your soul left your body when you were saying the word tar. That's how he passed away. So here there's a famous mimer in Likutei Torah where the Alter Rebbe discusses here this last point of the story, because obviously this is a big pella. The Rishonim already discussed this question. How could it be such a thing that the Mesifta the Rekiya is arguing with the Eibishter? The Eibishter has one opinion and the Mesifta the Rekiya is saying, no, we disagree with you. And Rabbi Bar Nachmani is the one that's going to resolve, and he's going to say that the halach is like what the Eibishter said. So the Hezber de Bekitzer is, and this is also in a Sikha from the Rebbe Chelik Yud Beis, Pashas Tazria, the Rebbe explains this beautiful there, that we're talking over here about two levels in the Lakus. There's HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is Soiviv Kalalman. The Mesifta de Rekiya is, as it always says in Chassidus, is the level of the Shechina that's revealed in the Mesifta. Shechina is Mamal Kalalman. So there's an argument here between Soiviv Kalalman and Mamal Kalalman. What does this mean, an argument? It's two levels. Mitzat Soiviv Kalalman, a situation where there's a suffix of Tomeh. Soiviv Kalalman is higher, and therefore it says it's Tahir. There's no room for impurity there. But Mitzad Mamal Kalalman, which is a lower level that gives space for an existence of a world where there can be something disconnected from the Eibishter, there the Psak Din is Tomei. That's so the Kulam Mesifta de Rekiya on that level doesn't sense the level of Tara that there is in the Kodesh Baruch Hu. That's what they were saying. What was the Chiddush over here of Rabbi Bar Nachmani's Psak Din? Rabbi Bar Nachmani said twice Tahir. What Rabbi Bar Nachmani accomplished was that he was able to bring from a level that's even higher than Soiviv, that reveals what the Tara of Soiviv, that it should be sensed and experienced even in Mamala. Even the Mesifta de Rekiya should also agree that it's Tar. When you reach from Atzmus, the very essence of the Eibishter himself, you bring down the Tar of the Eibishter from Soiviv into Mamala. That's the double lashon that he said, Tahir. And the Rebbe teaches that's also what it says. Ani Yochid bin Egoyim. Yochid refers to the fact that it's not a level of Achdas Hashem, which is Echad. That's a level that's related to the Mitzias of the world, as it's explained in Chassidus. But it's Yochid. It's the Eibishter himself, and he brought down that level of Tara. And if this is dafka through Rabbi Bar Nachmani, and a Shama Beguf in this world has that power to bring down this level of Tara. That's the Kitzur, what's going on over here in this last point in the story here. Okay, now the Gemara continues the story and says, how did they find him here now? He passed away over there. He was by the swamp alone. So Nafal Piskim Rekiya. a piska, a note fell down from heaven in the city of Pumbedisa, where he was the Rosh Hashiva. Rabbi Ben Achmeni is bakish b'yeshiva Shomayla. The Rabbi Ben Achmeni was requested to come up in the heavenly yeshiva, and therefore he passed away. So Nafku Abaye and Kula Rabbanan la Suki Bey. So Abaye and Rava and all the Rabbanan went out to go and find him, to bury him. La Aviyadi Duchte. They didn't know where his place was. Lagme, they went to the swamp. Chazru, they saw there Safri, the birds, the metalolivikaimi, that the birds are flying and they're sort of hovering in one place and they're creating a shade beneath them. So Amri, they said, Shmamina Asumu. That must be that this is a miracle that they're there covering him in the shade. And that's where he is. And they found him there, and then Sovdu, Tlasa Yaimev, Tlasa Leilaisa. They eulogized him for 3 days and 3 nights. And after this, they were going to leave. Not for Piske, then a note again came down from heaven. Anyone that separates from here, Yehei ben Nidui, should be in excommunication. So they continued in Saftu Shiva Yaime. They eulogized them for 7 days. And then not for Piske, a note came down from heaven. L'chule beischem l'shalom. You can go to your house in peace. That's the conclusion of this. One more detail that then happened. On that day, the Noch Nafshe, that Rabbi Ben Achmeni passed away. Dalia Zape, Vidari Lahutaya, a big wind, a hurricane wind came and picked up this Arab merchant, Kirach of Gamli. He was riding on his camel. It lifted him up. Mehagise de Nar Papa. He was riding on one side of the river called Nar Papa. Vishad Yabachise. And it threw him over on the other side. So Amar, this Arab merchant says, "My hi, what's going on over here? What's this tremendous wind?" Amri lay, they told him, "Noch nafshe the Rabbi Ben Achmeni." Rabbi Ben Achmeni passed away, and that's why the world, there's a commotion in the world, there's a big storm in the world. Amar lefanov, he said in front of the Eibusher Rebbeinu Shalom, the Master of the universe, Kula almi didachu, the whole world is yours. Rabbi Ben Achmeni didach, and Rabbi Ben Achmeni is yours as well. At the Rabbi, you have love for Rabbi, Rabbi didach, and Rabbi has love for you. Why would you want to destroy the world because of the fact that Rabbi Ben Achmeni passed away? So after he said this, Noch Zafe, the hurricane subsided. The Gemara here finishes off this whole long Agadata we had here with a detail that connects back to something that was at the beginning of this Agadata. Rab Shimon ben Chalafta Balbasave. Rab Shimon ben Chalafta was obese. The Gemara brings this here because it began with, if you remember, Rebbe and Ablaza Rab Shimon, that it also said the same thing about them. So Yom Echad, one day, have a chamimele. He was very hot. Have a solik v'yasav ashina deturi. He went up and he sat on the teeth of a mountain. He sat on the tip of a mountain to get some air. Amale lebrate says to his daughter, "Biti, my daughter, hanifi alai b'manife. Fan me with a fan to cool me off." He had no air. He couldn't breathe. V'aniyetnlach, and I'll give you kikrin de nerd. I'll give you a bundle of nerd, or some kind of perfume and so on. Adahachi. Meanwhile, Noshva a wind comes out and blows and gave him the air that he needed. So Amar, so now he said, Kama kikrin the nerd l'maridechi. How many bundles of this nerd, of this perfume, do I have to give to the Eibusher that's watching over me and gave me this wind to relieve me from the heat that he was involved, that he was suffering from? And the Gemara goes back to what it said in the Mishnah regarding a person hiring a worker and the conditions of what are the terms of this person that comes to work. So the Mishnah said, you always follow the custom in the land. It says the Gemara, Hakoil, this expression that it says always, Hakoil lasuya mai. What is it coming to add? It says the Gemara, lasuya ba'asre denihigi. It's coming to say, to add also in the place where the custom is, mikrach rifte, that the employer, he gives a loaf of bread, umishte, anafka, and he also gives to drink a revius of wine for his workers. So if he's going to tell his workers, kadmisu va'aisiluchu, because I'm serving you this breakfast in the morning, so you come early before you have to begin your job. They have to begin their job. We learned before in the beginning of this Perek at Net Tzachama. So he tells them, you want to eat for what I serve you? Come early before and then eat before, and then you'll start working on time at Net Tzachama. That's Rashi's pshat. Taisus here says the pshat is that the minig amakim was that the workers are served in the home. They're not served outside in the field. And here, this employer says that if you want to come and eat, I'll bring you the food out into the field. You're not going to take off from your work to come into the home to eat. So Amrullah, they could say to him, Lav kol kiminach. No, we don't have to follow what you want. We go according to the minig of the place. And the Gemara, the Mishnah that is said, so the Mishnah there said that Rabbi Yochanan ben Masya told his son to go and hire a worker, and that his son made up with the workers that he's going to feed them. And when it comes back to Rabbi Yochanan ben Masya, he says to them, "Oi, what did you do? You told them you're going to feed them. You didn't specify what it is you're going to feed. Whatever you're going to feed them is not enough. Even kesudas shleima b'shaita. Even if you're going to feed them as great and as abundance as Shlomo Melech had, it's not enough for a yid, which is b'nei that comes from Avram, Yitzchak, v'Yaakov." And then the Mishnah says after that I think it was Rav Shimon Gamliel that said, nothing to be concerned about. You just follow the minig of the city. Whatever the minig is, that's what you have to feed them. So the Gemara asks, does the Mishnah here bring a story which is a contradiction to the point that it said before? The point we said before that you follow minig Medina. Then it brings this story of here, which makes the point that you don't necessarily follow minig Medina. You're going to have to feed them like Bnei Avram, Yitzchak, v'Yaakov. So this is contradicting the point that it said before. And it says the Gemara this is missing something here in the Mishnah, and this is how you have to read the Mishnah. Usually you follow the minig of the city. If you hire workers, what do you have to feed them? Do you have to feed them? Whatever the minig is. But if you went and specifically made a condition that you're feeding them, so meaning there's already a minig, but nevertheless you decided to specify that you're going to feed them. So what does that mean? You're adding something. You meant to add something that's not self-understood from the minig. So what did you add? You must have added something more. And with that, based on that, the Gemara brings what it says. He told them to go hire workers. His son went and told him he's going to give them food. When he came back to the father, my son, even if you're going to prepare for them like Shlomo Melech prepared in his time. You haven't been yaitze what you promised them. Iman with them. Sheheim b'nei Avram, Yitzchak, v'Yaakov. The Yidden, the children of Avram, Yitzchak, v'Yaakov deserve much more. That's the pshat in the Mishnah. Okay, but now here the Gemara is going to explain what do we see from the Mishnah, that there's the Suda of Shlomo b'Shaitoi, and that's not enough for a Yid because a Yid comes from Avram Avinu, Avram, Yitzchak, v'Yaakov. Says the Gemara, so l'meimre shall we say the Suda said Avram Avinu, that the meals that were served by Avram Avinu, adifim mishloim, the midashloim, are more than what Shlomo Melech served in his times. But Vaksiv, there's a pasuk that describes the food that was being served by Shlomo Melech. It was a tremendous amount of food. Pasuk says, "Vayihi lechem Shlomo l'yom echad." The bread of Shlomo Melech for one day was shloishim kor silas, 30 kor of silas of fine flour, and shishim kor kemach, and 60 kor of regular flour. Asara bakar briim, 10 from the cattle that are strong and healthy. Vasara, or in the pasuk it actually says esrim bakar ri, 10 cattle that come from the pasture. Umeyetzain, another 100 sheep. Levad, besides ma'ayel, tzvi, v'yachmer, ubarburim evusim. That was all the amount of animals and meat and bread that was served there by Shlomo Melech. Now, Omar Gurian ben Astia mishmei Rav Gurian. Ben Astian says in the name of Rav regarding what it says there in the pasuk, this is actually not the description of all the food that was served. Halalu, all of this that's being mentioned here regarding the amount of flour and bread and dough that was made was only la milon shel tabachim. This was the dough that's used. A one person that cooks, you need this dough to absorb the steam or the dirt that there is at the bottom, above the pots. That's the measure that this pasuk gives. But the actual amount of food that they ate was much, much more. Rabbi Yitzchak says, halalu litzike kedera. The food mentioned here is only for certain sort of side dishes, as things that are tasty. That's what Rashi here says. Tzike kedera, side things that give taste, or maybe this was all used to add extra taste. But the actual meal was much more than this. And Rabbi Yitzchak also said, Elaf nashim hayel Shlomo. Shlomo Melech had 1,000 wives. Kol achas v'achas asas haloi beveisa kach. What it describes here in this pasuk, times that by 1,000, because each one of his wives prepared this for him in his home. Why? Why did they all prepare for him on the same day? My time, because one wife thought maybe he's going to come and have the meal with me today. And the other one thought maybe he's going to have the meal with me today. So you see how much abundance of food there was by Shlomo Melech. But by Avram Avinu, what does the pasuk say? That Avram Avinu runs to the bakar, to the animal, and vayikach ben bakar rach v'toiv, he brings the animal which is tender and good. So what did Avram Avinu serve? V'amar Rav Yehuda amar Rav, when it says ben bakar, that means that there was echad, that's one. Rach, when it says it was tender, that's another one. Shnayim, second one. V'toiv is shloisha. Toiv is a third animal. So Avram Avinu served 3. Here you have thousands of cattle and of animals that Shlomo Melech is serving, and by Avram it's just 3. So the Gemara answers, no, Adarabah. We see from these psukim itself that Avram Avinu is more. Why? Because Hasam tlas yiturit tlas gavri. Here by Avram Avinu, it's 3 oxen for 3 people, for the 3 malachim that he was serving. Hacha, over here by Shlomo Melech, when it describes everything that he served, L'chol Yisrael v'Yehuda. It's for all the Yidden that were there in Eretz Yisrael and in the area of Yehuda as well. Shenema, as the pasuk there says, Yehuda v'Yisrael rabim k'choil asher al hayam. And the Yidden was so plenty, like the sand that there is by the sea, and that's who was being served. So it comes out that they actually got less to eat than the 3 malachim that ate by Avram Avinu. Each one got a full ox to eat. The Gemara just explains here one of the things that it mentioned in the pasuk, that he also had barburim evusim. What is this? My barburim evusim. Amarav, so Rav said, this refers to the chickens that are being forced fed and they become very fat. Shmuel says, they're not force fed, but they eat themselves and they become very fat. It's more healthy if it's not force fed. They brought the ox from its place of pasture, but the loyanis when it's not forced to work, and or the chicken that comes from its place, from its coop, or from its place where it's in its garbage, where it's not being forced at all. And that's also the best quality. Rabbi Yochanan said, the best from the meat of the animals is shayr, is the ox. The best from amongst the birds is tanagailas, is the chicken. Amar Ameimer says, Zakse uchmese, the black chicken that is, Beibat Nise, that is by the vats of wine, the Mishtachre Beni Atzri, which is between the press and there's the seeds of the wine there, and it eats from the seeds, from the press of the wine, it becomes very fat from this. The Lematzi Pasya Kanya, it can't even take steps like a reed, like the size of a reed. That's the real fat black chicken that's very good. Now here the Gemara is going to go through all the details that it says there in the Psukim by Avram Avinu. It says Avram Avinu ran to the bakar to serve it. Amar Rav Yudah Amar Rav, Ben bakar is echad. Ben bakar is 1. Rach, it was shnayim. And toiv is shloisha, as we said before. But the Gemara asks on this, ve'eme, maybe we should say, chat, when it says bakar rach v'toiv, it's all just describing one animal, one ox, which was tender and good. So he answered him, Kedamri Inshi, like, sorry, this is part of the question actually. And the Kedamri Inshi, like people actually say, this is a tender, good meat. So how do we know that it's each one is saying that it's a separate one? And says the Gemara, Lichtoiv, Rach Toiv. So then the pasuk would write Rach Toiv, which is like the expression that people say that it's tender, good meat. You don't say tender and good, tender, good meat. My Vitoiv, the fact that it adds a vav there and good, Shmaminola Drosha. So that means that you have to darshan it as a separate one. But the Gemara still asks, so maybe we should say today. There's 2 here. There's Rach, which is one that's tender, and then the other one is Toiv. So the Gemara says no, but the Toiv l'drasha, since by Toiv it says a vav, and we darshan that separately, Rach nami l'drasha. The word Rach, tender, is also darshan separately because it's not the way people speak. People don't say Rach vit Toiv, so we understand now that both Rach and Toiv has to be said separately. So now you're saying that there were 3 different oxen here. But later in the pasuk it says, that Avram gave it to the lad, and he went very quickly to prepare it. Now, oisai is a singular term, so how could you say it's 3? So the Gemara answers, each one of these oxen were given to one lad, so therefore each one had only one, therefore it's used as a singular term. Now Avram Avinu himself took the butter and the milk and also the ben abaka that he prepared and he gave in front of them. So it also uses a singular term here regarding Avram Avinu himself. So the Gemara explains the kama de matya, the first one, as soon as it was ready to serve, I see he brought it in front of them. He didn't serve all 3 together, so therefore it uses a singular term. So the Gemara asks, why did he take a need to serve so much? Why did he need 3 different animals? To sagi bechad, wouldn't one be enough? Amar Rav Chanan bar Ava, so Rav Chanan bar Ava says, "Kedei la'achilon shalosh l'shaynis b'chardal," because he wanted to serve each one of them tongue separately and tongue with mustard seeds. Amar Rav Tanchon bar Chani lo'olam al yeshana adam en aminik. Person should never change from the custom in the place that he's in. Shaharei Moshe alolamarim, but Moshe Rabbeinu went up into heaven v'lo yachal. So over there for 40 days he didn't eat. He didn't eat any bread. Malachi Yesharis yardu lamata v'achlu lechem. When the Malachi Yesharis came here to be by Avram, so they did eat bread. So the Gemara asks on this: do you think that they actually ate? That it only appeared as if they were eating and drinking, but they didn't actually eat and drink. Taisus here actually brings that in Seder Eliyahu Rabbah, it says that they did actually physically eat and drink for the kavod of Avram Avinu. And the Rebbe discusses this point also in a Sikha when you get to what our Gemara says, that they didn't actually eat and drink. If that's the case, so if so, seemingly Avram Avinu wasn't Mekayim any mitzvah with this. The whole mitzvah of Achnas Tzorchim didn't do anything because it was just the whole thing was just that it appeared as if they were eating and drinking. So one of the points that Rebbe says is that the main thing is Avram Avinu expressing his generosity, but whether they actually ate a drink or not is not the relevant point here, because especially also it's before Matan Torah, where the effect of the mitzvah regarding the physical eating and drinking of the poor person that receives it is not the main thing. The mitzvahs that the Avos did before Matan Torah was all just be'ikr beruchnius, and the same thing is here as well. Amar Rav Yudah Amar Rav, Kol ma she'asa Avram Lamalachi Asharis, whatever Avram Avinu did himself to serve these malachim, Ba'atzmai, Asa Kadosh Baruch Hu Levanav Ba'atzmai. The Eibishter also did himself for his descendants, for the Yid. Everything that Avram did to serve them through a shliach, Asa Kadosh Baruch Hu Levanav Alidei Shliach. The Eibishter does for Yidden also through a shliach. So it says, V'labakar Ratz Avram. Avram runs himself after the ox. So it says, V'ruach Nasa Me'ez Hashem. So it also says that there's a ruach that comes out from the Eibishter himself, and this is the slav that the Eibishter himself gave to the Yidden, similar to the animal that Avram Avinu went himself. Vayikach Avram Avinu himself went to serve them butter and milk. So it says also the Eibishter himself, Hineni mamtu lechem lechem min hashamayim. The Eibishter gives himself the man for Yidden. And then it says, Avram Avinu stands himself there under the tree to serve them. So it also says, Hineni oimid lefanecha shamal atzur. That when Yidden needed water, and Hashem tells Avram Avinu to bang the water, in Pashas B'Shalach, Eibishter says, I will stand there with you. And then here it says, Avram Avinu went and accompanied them to send them off. It says also by Yidden, Vashem hoylech lifneim. Yoimam, Hashem goes by day ahead of the Yidden to accompany Yidden. Then it says, Yukach no ma'at mayim. A little bit of water should be taken for them. And this is not what Avram Avinu did himself. He did it through a shliach. So too it says, V'yikisa b'tzur v'yotza mimenu mayim v'shisei ha'am. That the actual water that came out from the rock came not from Eibishter himself. It came through Moshe Rabbeinu from the rock, which is through a shliach. Now the Gemara says, one of the details here that Rav said, Uplige, the Rab Chamer Bar Chanina. It argues what Rab Chamer Bar Chanina said. The Amar Rab Chamer Bar Chanina, V'chein Tana, the Rabbi Shmuel, B'schar Shloisha, Zachol L'Shloisha. As a reward for three things that Avram Avinu did, the Yidden were merited three things. B'schar Chamer V'chalav, as a reward for the milk that Avram served, Zachol L'man. The Yidden was Zeichet to the man. So that's the same as before. The schar of Avram Avinu that he stood by the malachim to serve them. So over here he says a different shot. Zachol la'amud ana. The Yidden was zeichet to the clouds of glory that surrounded them in the midbar. Schar yukach damat mayim. This is the same as before, that Avram Avinu had an agent, a shliach, serve water. Zachol lebe'er shel Miriam. There was zeichet the water that they got from the be'er of Miriam that came from the rock. Now the Gemara continues, Dash in the psukim there, it says, Yukach no ma'at mayim v'rachatzu ragleichem. He told the malachim, wash off your feet. Amar Rabbi Yana Rabbi Shmuel, Amru Loi, the Malachim said to him, why do we have to wash off our feet? Do you suspect us to be like the Arabs? Sorry. Shehei mishtachavim la'avak ragleim. They bow down to the dust on their feet. So you want us to take off this avodah zarah from our feet? Kvar yatsa mimenu Yishmael. Yishmael already had left from Avram Avinu's ways, and Avram Avinu was familiar with this from the way Yishmael behaved. It says the Eibishter appears to Avram Avinu there in Eloine Mamre, and it says that Avram Avinu is sitting by the opening of the tent, and the day was very hot. It was the third day of the bris milah of Avram Avinu. Oh yeah, that's what it was. The Eibishter comes to do the mitzvah of Bikkur Chaylim to see how Avram is feeling. The Eibishter takes his son out of its shield so that the tzaddik Avram Avinu should not have to work hard with inviting guests. So Avram Avinu sees there's no guests around today. So he sends Eliezer to go outside to invite guests. Nafak, he went out, he went out to search and to see, he couldn't find any guests. Omar, so he told Avram Avinu there are no guests around. So Omar Avram says, I don't believe you. The Gemara interjects and says, this is what they say in Eretz Yisrael, there's no trust to a slave. People don't trust what a slave tells you. So now, Avram Avinu himself comes out, he sees that the Eibishter came to visit him and he's there by the door. This is what that Avram Avinu tells the Eibishter, Al Natavim Alav Decha, don't leave from your servant. And so it's referring, when it says there, beginning in the Pasuk, according to this Pshat, it says Hashem there, it's going on the Eibishter. Kivin the Chaza, the Ka'asa V'Shari, so the Eibishter sees that Avram Avinu was taking care of the bandage of the Milah. Omar, he says, Lav Oirach Ara L'Meikemocha. It's not appropriate now to be here to visit Avram Avinu in this time. This is also the explanation of what it says there regarding the three malachim that passed by. He lifted his eyes and he saw there are three people that are standing right by him. And then later it says, he saw them, and he had to run towards them. So the question here is, what happened? In the beginning, the Pasuk says that they were standing right near him. And then afterwards it says he ran after them. So the answer is, first they came and they stopped and they stood right near him. But when they saw him that he was in pain and he was changing his bandage of the Milah, they said, it's not proper to stand here now. And therefore they walked away, and Avram Avinu had to run after them. Who were the three men? Michal, the Gavriel, and Rafal. These were the three malachim of Michal, Gavriel, and Rafal. Michal came to give the good news of Sarah that she's going to have a son. Rafal came to heal Avram Avinu. And Gavriel came to turn over the city of Zdaim. So the Gemara asks, how could you say that only one malach went to turn over Zdaim? Two of the malachim came to Zdaim, in the evening. And so the Gemara, the Azam Michal Ba'adei, Michal did join Gavriel to go to Zdaim, the Sheizve Leloit, to go and save light. They kanami, this is, we could prove this also, the Pasuk says, it says there a singular term that he turned over the city, which is only one malach. So the like siva yafchu, it doesn't say a plural term that they turned over the city. So we know that the second malach that went with him did not turn over the city. He only went to save light from the city of Zdaim. Okay, we'll continue. We'll continue Mitzvah tomorrow.